And we're going to get into what is what is this that he does? What is sub to? How do you do some of these strategies to build lots of passive income, lots of rental income, the way that Pace is doing it? And we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. It looks like he's jumping on now. I think he has the ability to turn his mic on. There he goes. Man, you missed all the fun. We had so much good stuff going on. We were playing some Star Wars lip syncing videos. And oh yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll wrap at the end of this and do some fun stuff like that.
Thanks for covering for me, bro. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Well, don't thank me. Thanks Star Wars. They were covering for you and doing quite the good job. And I think everybody, that's commenting in would say that they really love Star Wars and they learned something that's lurking. What was it? The one statement that they said, what's hiding in the bushes of love? We'll just leave it at that. So Pace, welcome to the Wealth Webinar Series. I'm happy to have you here. So what are we going to get into today?
Bro, one thing, the reason I'm late is because I'm so glad that I paused for a moment this morning. As real estate investors, sometimes we can get cocky. And somebody sends me a deal this morning and I'm like, buy it, we'll buy it, right? I know the guy bought it at 100. It's worth 370. And he's like, give me a number. And I'm like, 200, dude, I'll let you make $100,000 on selling this deal to me. It's a straight up fix and flip. And my wife, who's my realtor, she goes, I don't know. There's something weird about this deal. You need to go out and see the house. I go, I've been doing deals for 10 years. I don't need to go out and see the house. Dude, I am so glad I went out. I called the city inspector this morning and I said, hey, I've heard there's problems on this house. He's like, dude, that house is a teardown. And I'm like, okay, you're an inspector. You're going to be a little bit intense. So I go out to the house, dude. Oh my gosh. The photos that this wholesaler took are so amazingly structured to make you think it's a good house. You get out to the house, you just pull up to the in the driveway and you go, this thing needs to be torn down. There's not even a question. I don't even need to get out of my truck. So anyway, I ended up getting caught up with the city inspector because it still might be a deal, right? If I buy it for 100, I put 130 grand into it, brand new manufactured home on the land. I'm into it 230, 250. The house is worth 370. Man, I still might be able to make, $100,000 on the deal. So anyway, that's why I was late. I apologize. Thank you everybody for waiting. And thank you, Chris, for covering my butt.
Absolutely. No, we were having some fun. I think some people thought that I was a little crazier than I actually really am for playing the bad lip reading videos. But you know what? That's what it's all about. And I love that, you and Jamil have been doing a ton of those funny videos. Those are awesome. I know we've been doing that for a little bit and I love seeing them because, there's nothing more powerful than a little bit of laughter. And that's what I'm always after.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a lot of these people, same thing in your industry, bro. Like these guys that are trying to teach financial education. If you're trying to make an impact, you have to influence people, right? And you can't influence people unless you have their attention. And ultimately, what you teach is so absolutely impactful. It is life-changing stuff that should be taught at early stages in your 20s when you first start making money. But nobody pays attention to it until it's, they're already losing money. It's like every story that you talk to or I hear, once people hear about infinite banking and everything you teach, it's like they've already lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars because they didn't have the right information. So unfortunately, you have to figure out ways to get people's attention. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make an impact. And I love what you're doing. I watch your stuff. Last time I talked to you, I was like, dude, the freaking sweater commercial was so good. I'm like, first off, where did he get all the sweaters? Second off, how did he get those on? Did he have to have somebody help him?
That was tricky. That was definitely a challenge.
But yeah, we're just trying to get people's attention because I get people all the time. Let's talk about strategies for a second. There's so many different strategies to build wealth, right? You can be a day trader if that's a cool thing for you. Not something I get excited about, but you could be a day trader. You could do the BRRRR strategy. You could do fix and flip. You could do sub 2, seller finance, whatever. And I get people that look at the BRRRR strategy, which is so commonly talked about, right? It's kind of the same thing in your industry. There's guys that talk about certain elements of your industry that you're like, that's kind of counterproductive to what people really should be doing. But it's as far as their education or experiences got them. And so it's the one thing that they have to talk about, right?
You know what's funny about the BRRRR strategy while we're on that? Do you know that I own the trademark on Burr.
Are you kidding
I
me?
swear to God, man. I thought for sure Brandon had gotten that. And I went on, I had my trademark attorney go in and they said, no, it's available. I said, get it. So we're on our way to getting that.
Dude, that's genius.
BYOB, getting the trademark on that. And yeah, I mean, hey, some people collect domain names. I collect trademarks.
I love that. The Burr strategy is so great, but it's talked about. And it's talked about in industries that it's like, okay, you want to get started in real estate, do the Burr strategy. I'm like, that's not really a beginner strategy unless you have a great, good credit score. You've got cash, which could come from private lenders, but you've also, a lot of times you've got to have a W-2 income to get a lot of these lenders to refinance you out. And I'm like, okay, let's say if I'm a wholesaler, right? What's the typical wholesaler? How are they getting paid? They're getting paid basically 1099, right? They're getting paid assignment fees from their title company. No lender is going to give you money in that situation. And a lot of times the education that is taught is you can get all of your money back on the Burr strategy, which you can, but it's like 1 out of 10 times, right? So I look at the Burr strategy, amazing strategy. Obviously, it's why thousands and thousands of people do it. But the main thing that I see people run into is after they do their 4th or their 5th Burr strategy deal, they run into a lack of capital, right? Because they spend a lot of money deploying into these Burr strategy deals. So either A, it's because they don't know how to use private money, right? Raise private capital, or B, being their own bank. Or
you should have
B,
just got my book, man. I wrote the darn book on that.
Freaking love it. Did that just come out?
Oh no, I've had this for a while. This book was written a couple of years ago.
I don't think I've ever read that.
Well, I'm going to mail it to you, so you'll be able to read it.
Please, please, please. Because it's such a vital part of doing this business, right? I think it's one of those things that people are deathly afraid of. So going through my journey, what ultimately happened with me is that I have been a wholesaler for a long time. We still wholesale. We do a lot of fix and flip, but primarily I was a contractor for 10 years. And what do you do when you're a contractor? Well, you go out, you swing your hammer, you paint a house, and you do the work and you get paid. Guess what I got to do tomorrow? I got to go swing the hammer. I got to paint another house in order for me to get paid. Great. So it's kind of the equivalent of every time that I want to go down, every time I want an orange, I got to go down to the grocery store, buy the orange, and now I have the orange. I get to consume the orange. It's gone. The difference in what you are doing, the difference in what I'm doing compared to maybe being a wholesaler, is that I'm no longer just going down and buying an orange, consuming the orange, and now I have to go get another orange. What I'm doing is I'm taking the seeds from the orange and I'm planting an orange seed so I can continually have oranges for free in my backyard the rest of my life, right? So when I had this catastrophic thing happen to me 28 months ago. I had a guy that owed me $1 million in my construction company. My daughter gets born, and this guy files bankruptcy on me and 48 other people to the tune of about $16 million. I was about $1 million of that. And I get this letter literally like 3 or 4 days after my daughter is born. Right? And I go, dude, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I am never going to put myself in another situation where I'm reliant on working for other people, 1, and 2, that I don't have money coming to me no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what's happening. I need to go create real life mailbox money, right? Now, I had been doing sub 2 and seller finance for years before this. But when that guy filed bankruptcy on me, I had 165 employees roughly, and I had a payroll that's $250,000 every other week. Okay. So you've got a payroll of $500,000 a month. I had to go find money real quick. So what did I do? I sold rental properties that I had bought sub 2. I sold rental properties I bought seller finance. And I had to liquidate this in order to continually pay my guys and keep them on staff until we wound down the company. Getting filed bankruptcy on was the best thing that happened to me. I didn't file bankruptcy. Luckily, I was able to weather the storm. But when that happened, I go, never again will I work for anybody else. I put all these eggs in this basket with this knucklehead guy that took advantage of me. And I don't think he intended to ever, basically run a Ponzi scheme. I think it happened out of, poor business decisions, and he didn't know what to do, and it spiraled out of control. I don't think he marked me as a guy that he was going to steal money from. I just think he was a poor business owner. And I continued to be a poor business owner and encouraged him by giving him more and more of my money to hopefully get my money back, right? I was digging the hole deeper. But when that happened, I said, never again will I work for anybody else. This is crazy. Like, you have to be crazy to not believe in yourself, and not go out and build your own business. And at that point I go, how fast can I get to 100 houses? How fast can I get to 100 houses with seller finance and subject to? And the reason being is, guess what? I didn't have anymore. I didn't have cash. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is, every conversation I would have with sellers has now been about, how can I buy your house with no down payment? How can I buy your house with a 0% or a 1% or a 2% seller carry? Last time I was on your show, I showed real life examples of deals that I'm in the middle of. I've got a deal. I should pull up and do a little screen share for you. We just bought 9 houses on Monday this week, all seller finance, 9 houses, seller finance, 2% interest carry, $0 down.
Oh yeah. You can't just say that and then not show everybody. So pull that sidecar out and let's see this thing.
So I think we ended up buying 10 houses the same day. Let's pull this up.
And you motivated me. So I'm actually working with Apple now to get that whole sidecar set up. I think that was fantastic. I can't wait to start being able to use that. I got this thing behind me, but I need the pencil.
Oh, dude, the pencil's dope. But the challenge is my pencil's not connected into me right now, unfortunately. Actually, yeah, I can set it up. Hold on. Let's do it.
And, while you're doing that, let me talk a little bit about what you were, in your story. That's an important lesson. A lot of people, and it's just because this is what we're taught, but a lot of people go out there and they constantly work harder. They work longer. They find any way they can to make more money by putting in more energy and more effort, hiring more people to put in more time, energy, and effort. And that's what they do, because that's what we've been taught to do. We've been taught to go out and work for money and put effort in for money. But what you finally started figuring out, and what you're going to start to show, is what I figured out. And that was, we only have so much time in the day. It doesn't matter who you are. We have the exact same amount of time every single day. And when we are always looking at, I have this many hours in the day, I can get up earlier, I can work later, but it doesn't matter what you value that hour at, you're always going to have a ceiling. Doesn't matter how much you think you're worth an hour, that creates a ceiling. And I don't know, but I don't really like ceilings. I like just having an infinite possibility. And one of the things that's unique is what you're doing, what I'm doing, is teaching people how not to have a ceiling, teaching people how to have their money work for them. Or like you said, take that orange, and instead of just focusing on eating it, take the seeds, plant the seeds, so those seeds grow into more oranges and more and more. And then eventually, just like any fruit or any tree, they drop their seedlings and more grow around it. So that's what you need to do with your money. That's what you need to do with your businesses. You need to stop thinking that everything you're going to do and build comes down to how many hours you can put into it.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I was basically, when I was running my construction company, I was just trading time, right? Which is fine. Like, you've got to do that. You've got to get some seed capital. You got to get that stuff going. But oh my gosh, man, the fact that I had one person owe me $1 million is ludicrous to me, that I thought that was a good idea. It was poor education, right? It was, just dumb. So anyway, here's the deal. On Monday, we signed the deal at 10:20 a.m. Last 9 offers from Pace, Morby, and Cody Barton. This person we bought the deal from, her name is Katie Fisher. Okay, there's 9 houses in that. Who's Katie Fisher? Katie Fisher is a wholesaler. Okay, so check this out. Katie Fisher is one of the wholesalers that we work with. Okay, it's one of the greatest things in the world. If I chose to do this, which I wouldn't right now, but if I decided I wanted to cut off all my marketing whatsoever, everything, right? No cold calling, no texting, no door knocking, driving for dollars, none of that. I have none of that. And all I did was I just go to wholesalers and I go, hey, let me have access to your bad deals, right? Because what an average wholesaler looks at a bad deal is just a seller that wants too much money. I look at that as like one of the greatest opportunities. Number one, there's almost no competition, right? So what does Katie make on this deal? 9 houses, Katie makes $5,000.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Well, it is, but I think we'll end up buying 50 houses from that one seller. So she has a seller named June. I think we'll end up buying 51 homes. So that package is just a chunk of 9. And it's the 9 houses that her tenants just moved out on, right? So June, the seller's like, look, basically I want close to retail. So I think we're giving her like $20,000 under retail, but Katie's getting $5,000 as her assignment fee. I'm sorry, Chris, it's $5,000 per house. So she's getting.
Okay, I was going to say, I like, that's a lot of work for $5,000.
Right. So 40. Okay. So seller's getting nothing down on this bundle of houses. We're giving Katie $5,000 assignment fee per house. So Katie will make $45,000 on selling me 9 houses, basically above retail.
That's a good deal for her.
Why is it above retail? It's above retail because what I think of retail is when I talk to a seller, I go, look, seller, if you sold your house today for $200,000, how much money would you get in your pocket? And the seller says, I don't know, probably about $185,000. I go, great. Then $185,000 is actually full purchase price. If I'm a cash buyer, $185,000 is full retail. And so when I say I pay full retail, typically I'm paying the price that the seller would get in their pocket after they sold it on the market, right? So I give the seller exactly retail after all that kind of stuff, but I don't give the seller anything up front. I just work out deals. So the document, which I'll pull up, DocuSign, now it's been like 2 or 3 days. Oh, there it is. Boom. 3%. 3% interest on the deal. So we've done 2% on a lot of this lady's houses, but we're doing 3% on these ones. Let's see where they are. Let me see if I can switch this up.
And are these homes in there? Is it Arizona where you're doing these?
All 9 of these are in Arizona. So you can see, so check this out. This is an interesting topic. So people will ask me, well, what about is there a balloon? So these are four of them on one page and 5 are on the other ones. So all 5-year balloon loans with the option to extend if in good standings, taxes and insurance impounded through West Star Servicing, 3% interest on all, which is great. Now, if I'm an investor, now, Chris, you understand the BRRRR strategy tremendously well. If I'm going out and I want to go buy 9 properties on the BRRRR strategy, what would you say right now would be my average interest rate going out and getting the loans that I can get for a BRRRR strategy loan?
So if you're doing bank loans, it's going to be about 5% on a commercial loan right now. Maybe you can get down to 4.75 if you shop it, but private money, I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but private money is expensive right now. 10 to 12% is where you're going to be at. Right.
So if I go down, let's say that I want to build mailbox money, right? I want to go and build a portfolio. And what's crazy is a lot of these houses, I know equity, it comes and it goes, but it's been interesting. This last year, me and my partner made $6 million just in appreciation growth. $6 million. Now it's going to go away at some point, right? Because we're going to have some market tumble in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whenever that's going to happen.
Well said.
Right? Who knows when it's going to happen? But it is interesting to just watch your ability to gain real wealth just by sitting and watching your properties appreciate. So if that's your game, right? Your game is I want real long-term wealth. I want to put money into my whole life insurance policies. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to have financial security. But I got to start with buying properties. How do I do that? Going out and getting a BRRRR loan and having to have a pretty decent amount of equity. What would you say is the average loan that I'm getting if I do a BRRRR? Like 65 LTV or 80% LTV?
You can still get 80%. On a deal like that one, maybe 75% is about what you'd probably expect to get because you're
cool. So let's look at this first deal real quick. So this first deal that I have, if I go out, and I'm not bashing the BRRRR strategy, the BRRRR strategy absolutely works. But what I'm bringing up is that there are other ways through subject to and seller finance. So check this out. So 2834 East Beck Lane, Unit 2, right? Condo in Phoenix. Purchase price is $145. Okay. I'd say ARV is $155 on this particular property. So if I'm buying that and ARV is $155, what would you say a BRRRR strategy loan would be on that? How much money would I have to bring to the table to get that deal done?
Well, you'd have to, that's what 155 you said?
Yeah, 155 is what it would appraise for.
38,750.
Cool. So I bring 38,750 to the deal. Okay. So let's go over to Notability. Let's see if I have an open file. So if I'm doing the BRRRR strategy, which is great, I love the BRRRR strategy, I've got to come up with $38,000. That doesn't include cleaning up the property. That doesn't include any cash to the seller. That's just my down payment for my loan. And that doesn't include closing costs, right?
No, there's no closing costs. So add $5,000.
So let's say that on this particular loan, I got to bring $43,000 in cash to go out and do that loan. Right? With seller finance or subject to, right? Going to the seller and saying, hey, I'll pay close to full retail on this deal because obviously you're giving me a 3% loan. Burr is going to say, I'm turning this into like a burst bashing strategy, which it's not supposed to be. 38,000 plus 5,000 closing. I'm at 43,000. Great. And then my average interest rate, let's say it's 5%, anywhere between 4.5.
That's a good number. 5% is pretty solid right now.
Okay. So if you go seller finance or even sub two, and I'll pull up a couple sub two examples which are really, really good. Some deals that we are doing right now. Seller finance or subject to, I'm bringing in $5,000 for closing and miscellaneous, $5,000 for my assignment fee, and my interest rate is 3%. So for me, I look at this deal and I go, man, I'm $10,000 into this deal before I can go out and rent it out. It's rent ready right now. So it's not that I don't like the burst strategy. It's just that a lot of times you're just going to have to raise more capital to do the burst strategy, or you're going to run out of the ability to go accumulate as many properties. Like if I was going to do 9 of these deals at the same time, if I did 9 of these, I got to bring $360,000 to the table on a burst strategy to do 9 of them. Plus I've got to get approved for those loans. What's great about the seller finance and subject to is that I have 0 approval. She didn't even ask me for proof of funds. She didn't ask me for credentials. Where do you work? Hey, will you send me your pay stubs? I could have not filed taxes for 12 years and that she still would have seller financed to me.
Now, somebody on here is sitting there saying, yeah, but with the Burr, I could use private money, come out of pocket with 0. I could borrow 100% because I have, I read Chris's book, The Private Money Guide, and I learned how to raise private money. So I got all the money from a private investor, call it 10%. So now your carry cost is going to be the 10%. And then you basically do those same renovations that you would, and then you take it to the bank and I'm going to refinance it. But see, here's where a lot of people are wrong. Right now, the market's so hot. So what you're doing, you're giving people the equivalent of what they would get selling the property on the MLS, which is a pain in the ass. We all know that. Okay. You're giving them that. In order for the Burr strategy to work, you'd have to buy that property significantly undervalued, then use private money to renovate it and to do it. So you just got carry costs, take it to the bank, hope the appraisal comes in high. So now you're gambling time, a couple of years now, market's going to slide. You're gambling time and hope that you get that bank financing out. Now I've done a ton of Burrs back in the day, years ago, before the market was crazy, where I've been able to do that, 0 money out of pocket. And actually on the refi, put money in my pocket. Today, that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, because you got to buy the deal basically 50 cents on the dollar in order for a strategy to work.
Maybe even 40 cents on the dollar.
Right. So it's not that it doesn't work. It's just that you have to find the markets that it works in, whereas seller finance and subject to works in every market, right? And it is a beginner strategy because I could have the worst credit of all time. I could be 18 years old, work out a deal like have you seen the deal that I did where I even had the seller finance their down payment to me?
No.
Okay, so
I saw that one.
Yeah, let's go through that one real quick. It's really interesting. The reason it's interesting is because it's very pertinent to this time. Our time frame right now is because I just barely made my final payment to them. So you guys can see let's pull up the note on this deal. This one's great. I love showing this story. So when did I close escrow on this deal, guys? Everybody in the comments, when did I close escrow? It hasn't even been a year, right? Has not even been a year. It's 11 months and 11 and a half months. All right. So I bought the property for $100,000. What's funny about this property is if I go pull it up, and I'll give you guys the address. I'm full disclosure. Address. Hold on. Let's look at this address. Oops, my bad. Address is 1906 South 78th Place. Let's pull it up. Okay. 1906 South. And again, this is a funny conversation because at the end of the day, equity comes and equity goes. I can't count on this equity, but it's just interesting to see. I bought this not even a year ago. Now look what it's worth. In 1 year, it appreciated $55,000. Okay. Here's the story on this deal. Okay. The story on this deal is the seller, Dale and Susan, they have this house, right? Dale and Susan. I'll go back to the note and I'll explain this to you guys a little bit better. but they were getting offers because at the time retail was $100,000. So what do you think wholesalers are offering them? $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 max. And the buyer who said that they would give 60 probably would cancel or try and renegotiate right before close of escrow, right? So I go to Dale and Susan, I go, hey, I'd be open to paying you the $100,000. And I recorded this conversation. So if anybody in the audience wants to hear me actually live in a seller appointment, getting the seller to agree to a 0% with a $10,000 down payment. Now, a lot of people will go, well, that's impossible. Pacey, you said no money out of pocket, 0% interest, and no credit. I see the 0% interest, which I'll show you guys in a second. But what about that $10,000? Where the hell am I supposed to get that? If I'm 18 years old, I'm 19 years old, where the hell am I supposed to get that 10 grand? Okay, well, let's bust this out. Let's go back to the deal. Okay. Go back to this is the note. You guys can pull this note up on county records. I closed. This is recorded with the county. March 31st, I closed. My down payment, by the way, what's my interest rate, guys? Look in the everybody in the comment. What's my interest rate? 0% interest. My down payment, pay attention to this, guys. Everybody pay attention. I paid them $10,000 down payment, but when did I pay them the $10,000 down payment?
In the future. In
the future. Not only did I have them seller finance the home to me, they seller financed the down payment. Okay, so check this out. I take over a tenant. They have a tenant in the property. Why did they sell? Everybody that's new is like, why would they sell? Why would they do this? Well, because they're retired. They're literally driving around the country in an RV every month because they're not technologically advanced. They're having to wait on a check from their tenant. And they're like, we just don't want to deal with tenants anymore. So the tenant's renting this place for $1,650. My payment, check this out. What's my payment? $375 a month. Okay, $375 a month is my monthly payment. Basically, I inherit a tenant, so I have no repairs. I have none of that stuff. I cash flow after, let's say $375 is my payment to them, another $100 a month for insurance and miscellaneous, and then let's say another $150 for just repairs, vacancy, et cetera, right? About 10%. After all of that it gets paid for, what do I make on a monthly basis? I make about $1,000 net. So what happens is I make that for 6 months. I net $6,000. And out of that $6,000, I make a $5,000 down payment to them. 6 months later, I do it again. And that payment comes due actually in 2 days. That's so funny. Okay. So in 2 days, that $5,000 payment is due. I cash flowed $12,000 in the last 12 months and I paid them $10,000. So when somebody tells me it's impossible for somebody to go out and make this kind of money with zero credit, zero credentials, no job history, no money out of their pocket, I go, dude, let me show you recorded documents against the county recorder's office. You guys can see my notes and my deeds of trust with these sellers that are seller financing or doing even sub two. Sub twos are the best. And I'll tell you why sub twos are amazing, because I can take over existing financing. Let me pull you this one. This one's amazing. Let's say Venmo. Xavier, I think his name. I have a guy that sends me Oh, here it is. See this right here. Xavier Allman pays me every single month $147.05. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. Okay, I've got a property in Vegas. Let's see. Let's pull it up. I can't remember the address. Whispering Grove. I think. There it is. 971 Whispering Grove. I bought it. 971 Whispering Grove. Let's pull that up. This one's a really good one too, because let's say that it's not a seller finance. Let's talk sub two. There it is. Boom. So this property, check it out. I bought it last year. Oops. I bought it last year on, what is that, July 9th? 971 Whispering Grove. I bought it for $288. How much is it worth today? $307. Okay, cool. It's appreciated. I'm okay with that. But more important to this is that I bought this house subject to. How did I do that? Let's go through it, and I'll tell you guys a little story about it. So Xavier buys this house in Vegas. He pays $285,000 for it, and he gets a VA loan. Chris, what happens when they buy a VA loan? They can put how much money down?
They can do zero. That's
cases. Exactly what he did. He did 0%.
We had somebody saying that, that they can buy with a VA loan. We'll get to that question after for anonymous, but yeah, you could do that 0% down.
So Xavier buys this house last January. So about 13, 14 months ago, buys it for full retail, $285 with a VA loan, and he puts 0% down. So if he buys it for $285, he puts 0% down. How much does he still owe, guys? He owes $285, right? Maybe even a little bit more. I think it was a little bit more. That's why it was $288, because closing costs and miscellaneous things that basically got bundled into the loan, right? So he puts 0% down. Here's what happens. What happens to Xavier? Why would Xavier want to sell this house? Well, he gets a job opportunity. He's I think he's 22 now, but let's just say he's 22. He's a 22-year-old guy. He's not a real estate investor. He's just trying to build his career. And what happens is he gets a job opportunity in Denver. Remember, this house is in Vegas. So 22-year-old kid buys a house, gets an amazing job opportunity in Denver. He thinks, oh, I can rent this thing out. I can be a real estate investor. In 30 days, he's like, there ain't no way I'm renting this out. Screw this. So what does he do? He calls the realtor who sold it to him, and he has the realtor put it on the market at $299. Did it sell? No, but he got offers. And he got offers at like $295. But let's say that he gets an offer at $295. He owes $285, right? Is he walking away with any money in his pocket, Chris?
No, zero.
Right. He actually would probably write a check for about $10,000 to $15,000 just to sell that
realtor
house.
Fee. Yeah.
Right, because this is retail.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts it on the MLS, sells it for $295, gets a full price offer, let's say at $295. Still, after paying off his loan, he would have to write a check out of his pocket, 10 to 15 grand. Now, the agent should have told him that. The agent should have said, look, man, I can't list this property for you unless you have $10,000 to $15,000 to get rid of it. He's like, no, but that didn't happen. They put it on the market. It failed. So what happened is after the failed listing, a wholesaler calls Xavier. And the wholesaler says, I can help you out. Xavier says, well, I owe $285. What do you think the wholesalers offer? Everybody that is in wholesale should know the answer to this. Probably about $210 to $220 would have been your offer. Do you think if he wasn't willing to put $10,000 out of pocket to sell this thing, do you think he was going to be willing to write a check for $65,000, the difference between those two? The answer is hell no. And so what happened is the wholesaler who spoke to him, this wholesaler's name is Dylan. And Dylan,
I know Dylan.
Dylan Good. You know Dylan Good.
I do.
So Dylan Good comes through my sub 2 course. I go, Dylan, get me on the phone with that guy right now. And I talk to Xavier and I have Xavier let me take over his house at $288, which was his mortgage balance. And guess who paid the closing costs? Xavier. The problem is Xavier didn't have the money to pay the closing costs. So I paid for the closing costs, and Xavier is paying me back every single month, $147.50 for the next 3 years.
That's crazy. So you got yourself a good guy there that he's actually paying you back. A lot of people probably would have just said, screw you, I'm not going to pay you.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. So I did it mostly to prove a point, right? So I do a lot of my stuff with my students where I'll show them things because I go, look, guys, I'm not going to just talk the talk. I'm going to walk the walk, and I'm going to show you how creative you can really get. And I'm going to do everything in my power to try and get these deals to be $0 deals. And so somebody in my mentorship goes, well, yeah, but you still have to pay for the closing costs. I go, you're right. I do have to pay for the closing costs. So how do I structure a deal? And now I've done this 5 or 6 times since then. And what Maria says, what if Xavier stops paying? I don't care.
Exactly. That's what I was waiting for you to say.
I don't care if he stops paying.
You would have paid those closing costs regardless. You're doing this to prove a point to your students that, hey, this is possible. And
yes, I did it. I did it to show it's possible. So now what I want to show you guys is I want to show you guys my report from my bookkeeper. I get a report every single week. And the report goes through, let's see, my net income and all that, or my net worth, which is great. But let's pull up the Airbnb on my report, and I'll do a screen share with you guys so you guys can see this.
And while he's pulling that up, folks, I want you to think about something. This is really important. If any of you are business owners or looking to be business owners, can I give you a piece of advice? I don't care whether it's a bookkeeper, your mother, or someone else. You need to be looking at your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement every single month. If you're not looking at that, it is the exact same thing as you getting in your car today, putting your mask that normally covers your face, put it over your eyes, and then just start driving. It's the same freaking thing. If you're not getting your reports and looking at them every month, you shouldn't be in business. And I don't mean to say that in the wrong way, but honestly, I don't understand how people can do and run businesses without running them from this, what he's going to show you here, from your balance sheet, profit and loss, and cash flow statement. And heck, if you want to really be an overachiever, do a personal financial statement as well every month to see.
Yeah. So I'm lucky. Chris is the same. We've got bookkeepers and people who do this now.
Right.
So a good bookkeeper, guys, really should only cost you about $200 to $300 a month, like just to track your expenses. You can have a VA do it, which is great. But check this out on my screen share. You guys will see, this is the property 971 Whispering Grove, same property. I own it in an LLC called Moving Forward Ventures. You guys can see my Airbnb. I turned into an Airbnb. So my monthly income is about $3,600. What's my net income, guys? $1,300, $1,600, $1,500, $1,400. That's after all expenses. That's after everything. Okay. So Maria, going back to your question, do I really care whether Xavier pays his $147.50 to me every month? The answer is no. I don't I don't care at all. I did it just to show my students that anything is possible in creative finance, right? I've got this new thing where I go, guys, stop overthinking the paperwork as well. Like, paperwork is very important, but your title company mostly does all the heavy lifting on the paperwork. You can sign a contract with a blank piece of paper and a freaking ketchup packet to do all your writing. I can sign my signature with a mustard bottle, right? It's not that serious, okay? Anything you can think of in financing, it can be put on paper and somebody can structure it for you. So if you go to a seller, you go, yeah, I'll take over your payments, but I can't pay for your closing costs. I can't come out of pocket for this deal. I feel bad for Xavier because Vegas closing costs, I think were like $4,000, right? So here's what's cool. I took this property over subject to already furnished. Remember, he moved out of the property and he went up to Denver. He left all his stuff in the property. So I had like couches, TVs, all this stuff. I took over all of that stuff, and all I had to do was clean the property, put some new bed sheets on it. First week, Airbnb, I've never had a month where it hasn't been completely booked out.
Yeah. Now let me show something too, because you showed yours. I'm going to show mine. So
love it.
Here's something that I just like showing this stuff. You know, I've spent a lot of time, like Pace has, just kind of coming up with systems, because as you scale and you build, you need systems. So why not get the systems out of the way right in the beginning? This is something that we've created and this is a Google Doc, as you can see right here. So we can share this, we can work remotely. This is my bookkeeper, Melissa, and then my notes, which I never update this thing, but all this does is this just gives me a really quick one pager that I can pull up anytime that shows, it's almost like my vital signs, right? How are my rentals doing? Where am I at? How much money am I making? How much am I worth? My appraised value on my rentals, 3.4 million. Mortgage amounts, 2.8. So the spread on that is what I'm actually worth with this rental portfolio. You know, rent amount. And I've been, just so everybody knows, I've been selling off a ton of my rentals because the market's high. That's what I do. I buy low and I sell high. Very different strategy, but that's what I do. I had 91 of these stupid things at one time, and thank God I'm down to whatever it is, 20 some of them. And then my vital signs, I make 7,900 every month. But you know what else is helpful is, and this isn't trying to get, you guys excited about what we're making or anything, because honestly, I'm not excited about $7,900 a month because I'm spinning this thing off. But every month you should also be tracking your rentals. Every month you should have the properties, and then you should be tracking, is it partial, late, overage? You know how much money people leave on the table from late payments? Like, listen, like, you're late, you're paying me. $35 I charge, and I don't care if you're late a day, you're paying.
Chris, that's cheap, bro. I'm charging $175 for a late payment.
Woo. I live in New York and there's all sorts of rules. Actually, we have no rules anymore here in New York. We have no control of our own properties. You see, the state of New York controls our properties. So I'm only allowed to charge X amount. I'm glad you can charge that, but I think they'd probably end up finding a way to fine me or put me in jail if I charge that kind of a late fee. But anyway, so like when you guys are doing it, just build your models like this, and it's not hard. It takes some time to build it. But after that, like think of this. If this is Pace or one of you and you're adding properties, how hard is it to me to add a column here and just plug numbers in? The appraised amount, the mortgage amount, or the sub 2 amount, or the seller finance amount. And then you just put in your expenses and boom, the system does all the work. You always know what you're making or what you're losing. I have properties on here losing money. This one, you guys will be able to look, 162 Thompson in Buffalo, New York. It's on the market this week. I finally got the scumbag out of the bottom. So I'm getting rid of this. And I have other ones that are losing. All the ones I'm losing money on, guess what? They're on the market or going on the market. So I just wanted to show that just to kind of give you guys a snapshot to show you what you should be when you're starting in this business in real estate. Don't wait until you're so big and you're like, oh my God, I got to figure this out. Just get it done in the beginning. Like balance sheet, profit and loss, get a bookkeeper or VA to do that stuff. It will save you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because making one small mistake every single week or every single month will cost you a ton of money over a long time. And this and what you just saw will help save that. Sorry, I didn't mean to take the reins there, but it's the same thing.
I think that if anybody that wants a copy of my spreadsheet, I'm sure Chris gives his out as well. I'll give you guys my spreadsheet. I didn't build it. Luckily, my bookkeeper, Tony, builds it out as we buy more properties. But again, before I had a bookkeeper and I was just managing 10, 12 rental properties, it is as simple as just jumping in on a Sunday morning before the kids wake up. If you guys DM me on Instagram, I'm not going to like do a swipe up thing or like put you in my funnel or anything like that. Just DM me on Instagram and I will give you guys access to my spreadsheet, my whole build out, like how it all bleeds into page 1 is my net worth. And then everything else that I add is all my assets, and each individual house is its own spreadsheet. So let me know. I primarily, just for anybody on exit strategies, I have a couple guys in there talking about, I would like to learn sub 2 and then selling it on a wrap. There's so many different exit strategies, And I'd love to go through that real quick if you guys don't mind.
Oh, I think that's important, because if you don't have an exit, like you don't have a plan.
100%. So if you guys want, let's go through top exit strategies on if I buy subject to or seller finance, what are some of the greatest exit strategies? Oh my gosh. Hi. Come here. This is what happens when mommy gets a phone call, is this little girl sneaks in. Say hi, Chris.
Adorable. Hi, how are you?
Hey, you're handsome.
Pretty soon. Aw, thank you. Pretty soon you have to meet my little one, Viviana, when she can actually hop on and talk.
Yeah, my wife does all of our listings. So she gets on these calls with some of our sellers, or not our sellers, but all of our buyers. And so it gets a little intense. She loses track of that little firecracker. So
he's cute.
Exit strategy number 1, let's go through a couple that everybody knows about, right? I could do a straight up rental. Okay. Straight up rental. I could do a lease option. Those are everybody kind of knows lease options. I could sell it on seller finance, or a lot of people would call that a wrap. I could sell it on land contract or agreement for sale. Depends on what part of the country you're in. And can you guys see my screen? Oh, crap. You guys can't see my screen. Hold on. I'm sorry. So sorry about that.
I'm just answering everybody's questions here. A lot of questions came in on that last one.
Okay. So rental, lease options, seller finance, selling on a wrap, land contract. A lot of people don't know what a land contract or agreement for sale is. Basically, all that is I'm selling it on seller finance, but I am keeping the deed in my name, even though I'm not the owner. It's kind of like buying a car. When you go down to a car dealership and you get a loan, do they give you the title to the car? No, you have to pay the car off first and then they mail you the title. That's basically a land contract agreement for sale. And if you guys want, I could come back here with Chris in months and we could talk all about exit strategies. Here's a couple other ones. Novation agreement. Nobody talks about novation agreements, but we do a lot of them, and I'll jump into that right now. A novation agreement is where I fix and flip a property, never having to have purchased the house ever. Okay. So listen to that one more time. It's for some reason, the name novation agreement confuses people to death. It sounds technical. It really isn't. So when I go and I do a fix and flip, I'm using hard money or private money or both. And I buy it with cash, obviously hard money and private money loans, but they're paying that seller off. The seller's off on their merry way. But have you guys ever ran into deals where you're like $5,000 to $10,000 off of where you need to be and the seller's just not willing to budge? A novation agreement makes it so you never have to purchase the property up front. So you contract with the seller to do the fix and flip. They move out of the house, you do the fix and flip, you sell it, and then the seller gets paid. In the last year, our group has made $3.5 million in net profits off novation agreements alone. Massive, massive exit strategy. Okay. It's something I could come in here and talk specifically for 2 hours about novation agreements. A subtail, we just completed one. We just completed one like 30 days ago. It's on my Instagram. You guys can go and see the walkthrough. A subtail is exactly what it sounds like. I buy it subject to, and I take it retail, which means I'm fixing and flipping it. Why would I buy it subject to and then take it retail? Well, because when I go buy a house with hard money and private money, I'm paying 12, 14, 16, 18% interest depending on my lender, and it's interest only. Whereas if I buy a house subject to and then I go fix and flip it, I'm paying a mortgage payment of 3%. My payment's 1/3, and it's actually paying down the principal while I'm fixing and flipping the property. And worst case scenario, let's say the market tumbles in the middle of my fix and flip. Guess what I can do? I can turn around and just rent the property out because I have an existing mortgage on the property, which is amazing. So if at all possible, I choose to do my fix and flips with these two strategies, not with cash.
I love that subtail. That's amazing.
Okay. Subtail is amazing. Okay. That's how we prefer to go about fixing and flipping, is not going in. I don't need a loan up front to buy these houses. The loans are already existing. So why not leverage them? It doesn't make sense to me, guys. Why would I pay off somebody's mortgage with a hard money loan? It doesn't.
Most hard money loans have points. I mean, the average points are 1 to 3 points. I mean,
right.
And plus closing cost, attorney cost, appraisal cost. Here, it's existing. You're just taking it over.
Right. So on those strategies, those are great. Here's another strategy. I could do an Airbnb. For me, I choose to do Airbnb out of the state. So if I own properties out of the state, Airbnb is my main exit strategy. I own properties in Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Florida, and Vegas. Anything outside of the state, I do Airbnb. Why? Is because I don't want to manage properties outside of the state. And I have a company that manages my Airbnbs remotely, and they charge me 10% of my gross income. So if I have a property like the one in Whispering Grove in Vegas, right? You guys saw that I bring in $3,600 a month. My management company charges $360 a month, and I never have to deal with it. The utilities are in their name. If there's a repair request, it goes to them. It's their Airbnb account, which is like a super high rated, amazing super host. And I never have to worry about building out an Airbnb business. I'm just the property owner, and I collect the net, right? Another exit strategy would be, let's turn it on to here. I could see rental, lease option, seller. Ooh, this one's good. Group homes. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Group homes are really good. Also corporate rentals. A lot of people don't understand this. Like
that's huge.
Traveling nurses, right? Traveling nurses, what happens is if they can't get housing, what they do is they just go to Airbnb. But the reality is if you go to a hospital and you say, hey, I own property within 4 miles of here, they have a rental company that will manage that property, right? Same thing with student rentals. These are kind of specialty things. Obviously they're all kind of rentals. But if you don't want to have a traditional rental, because it then requires evictions, it requires all sorts of pain and heartache with tenants. Student rentals, corporate rentals, group homes they don't have any tenant rights, right? no tenant rights. So if you guys want, we could come in here and talk. I could talk all about exit strategies and go through and give you guys addresses on every individual exit strategy that I've utilized. But primarily, here's where you can get started really easily. Here's another exit strategy I forgot. Here's the most important exit strategy of all time. Can anybody guess what the most important exit strategy is of all time with buying a sub 2 or seller finance deal? Starts with a W, ends with a wholesale it. You can wholesale these deals, okay? So if you're not wholesaling, a lot of the deals that I get wholesalers that come to me and go, I don't know what to do with this deal. The seller wants too much money. I go, dude, send the deal to me. Send the deal to me. Send the deal to me. I'll buy it. I'll pay you a $5,000, $10,000 fee. And I did a deal with Cody Sperber. A lot of people know Cody Sperber. He's the investor.
Clever investor.
I did a deal with him 3 years ago where he made $28,000 assigning a subject to me.
Now, did he flash the check in his Lambo?
Of course he did. You have to, right? So
it's mandatory for that, I guess.
Wholesaling subject to and seller finance. That is the key thing here, guys, is that you don't even have to buy these properties if you're not ready to. Okay. So I always tell people when they're brand new, whether they're in my course or they're not, I tell them, look, first place you want to go right out of the gate, start wholesaling some sub twos, get some cash accumulation, because you're now going to be able to do a lot more deals by going after sub 2 and seller finance opportunities. Then sell a couple of them on seller finance, because now I start getting cash flow. And the problem with the reason I don't love seller finance is because I don't get depreciation. And for me, depreciation is massive. I'm sure it is for you too, Chris, but to wipe out some of those gains you have. So I love depreciation, and I cannot get that on this exit strategy, but there's pluses and minuses to that exit strategy. Then I tell people, start doing some lease options. And when you're ready and you've got a little bit more capital and a little bit more wherewithal, then you can go and start doing some just straight up rentals. The advantage for a rental over lease options, seller finance, is that you didn't sell the property to anybody. You get to keep that long term. That's legacy money, right? And you get to do what you want. Like Chris right now is selling off his rentals because the market is astronomically high. If he's in a lease option or he sold it on a seller finance, guess what Chris can't do? He can't make a decision about these properties because he's already tied this up with a future buyer.
Yep. And let me explain that here. Let me just show that. I did, back when I was doing lots of real estate, I did a lot of those. For example, if you guys are looking at the spreadsheet again, let me move these out of the way. I'll just show you. One of the issues, the market is really high. You see this property here, 4855. We did a lease option with this guy. The house appraised at 365. This sucker right now, I bet you if we look it up, it's probably worth 4.25, maybe 450. I'm getting 2675. He never misses rent. And he has now, his lease option was for a year with a year extension. Okay. He is now going on, I don't know, what was the year? I don't remember what the year was. Probably 5 years. He's been doing.
So his option is dead, right?
His option's been dead. Now I am still honoring it because he's with our mortgage broker. And if he does it, I'm a nice guy if he does it. But here's the beauty. Like, you got to remember with lease options, although I'm kind of locked in with him, that lease option, and most, just so everybody knows, most lease options will expire. And I charged, I can't remember what he gave me. We got 5% down. So just under 20 grand or whatever it was he gave us down, he pretty much loses that when it expires. Now, when I honor this, I'm not honoring his down payment. Like, that's mine. Like, you gave that up, but I'm honoring the price that I fixed in his contract. The only beauty of this is every month he's paying down this mortgage. So you can see the spread there. Now this is, I think, 230,000 now. The same thing is very true. And this one kind of pisses me off to even talk about right here. 4060 Elma. House was 210 appraised when we did it. We did this one 6 years ago. I've been renting it to the same guy for 2250 on a lease option. He put 11,000 down, gone. And this house is now worth in the 300,000 range because of its location. I have no hope in hell of this guy closing on this deal. I don't think he ever is. I think he's a lifelong renter. So I got to decide. Do I want to give up the equity and just keep taking the monthly check and letting him pay the mortgage down? So you can see, like, there's some negatives to lease options. You can get yourself in a little bit of a pickle where when you want to get out, you can't. And that's my problem with those. But Is that such a bad problem? I mean, I don't know.
No, it's just, and
but
that's
it's
the thing.
Not as favorable if I needed money. If I needed liquidity right now, I'm screwed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? So there's pluses and minuses to all of these exit strategies, and you have to pick and choose them as you elevate and go through the game of real estate. And that's the cool thing, is that it's just this fun game you get to play. It's just such a fun game, and you're playing this fun game. Like, okay, well, let me it's kind of like playing jump rope. It's like timing and jumping over things. And it's such a fun, it's the game of being an adult, right? Building wealth. And lease options are great. At one point, I'd say 85% of my exit strategies were lease options. And there's nothing wrong with lease options, because let's say that I buy a deal sub 2, Chris, and I need 20 grand to pay for closing costs, cleaning up the property, a couple months of payments before I get a lease option tenant in there. And I raise that 20 grand from a private lender. What's great with like a 3 or a 5 year lease option is that I build in my equity when I sell the property, or I give them the option price. And when they execute the option, hypothetically, if they execute it, then my lender, the 20 grand, gets paid off. And then I get the remaining equity that I could 1031 into 2 or 3 deals that I no longer need a private lender for. Right now, I don't need a private lender because I made money on that lease option. So I like lease options from a standpoint of its building, it catapults forward. However, Chris is right. I would say it's at least 80, maybe 90% of lease options never actually execute the option.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. But the cool thing about this is, folks, is, we're talking about all these different strategies with real estate. I mean, right now the market's at a top. It's so high. I know some major wholesalers in some of the masterminds I'm in, and some of them are struggling to get deals. They're not doing the volume they used to because they're not as good as Jamil is, because Jamil went the opposite way, which when we have him on, he'll talk about that. But they're struggling to get the deal volume that they used to, which means if they don't got the deals, they ain't got the money. Deals equal money. And if you don't have the deals, your income dries up. And that's a scary thing, where with what Pace is doing, his strategy sub 2 works so well in this market. Think about it. Like, he's able to go to a seller and say, I'll give you full price. No two ways about it. And then he structures the deal. How many people like right now would love that? There's not a lot of people are not showing their cards right now. There's people in trouble. Like, make no two ways about it. There is a lot of people in a lot of trouble right now. I mean, it seems like everything's good out there because they're just handing out, stimulus checks like it's candy, and they can't be evicted. They can't be foreclosed on. But again, that dam's going to break and that floodgate's going to open, and those people are in trouble. So you may not know the whole story. So going out there doing what he's doing with sub 2 is huge. It's perfect, I think, for this strategy, or for this market, plus all those exit strategies. There's really, in real estate, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's only your way. But if you're going to get into real estate, one thing you noticed is what Pace said. He doesn't just do one vertical. He's doing a lot of different ones because, hey, eventually one might not work, and then he goes to another. He's been doing that. He's pivoting, right? So don't get into one thing and be like, this is the only thing I'm going to do. I got into flipping. I was a huge flipper. We used to do 20 some flips a month. It was chaos. It was absolutely horrible, but that's just what we did. I got myself in a cash flow pinch. That's why I started wholesaling. And then wholesaling paid my employees. Then I was like, wow, we're going to start keeping some of these rentals and have the rental income offset my carry cost. So then I started building up a rental, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't have to work as hard for that rental income. And then I had all these, and now I'm just selling them all off, because now today I feel like the ultimate in real estate in my realm is being the bank. I don't want, to be honest with you, if I had 0 properties to show all of you, I would be a happy freaking man today, because you know what I would do? I'd take all that money that you just saw in equity,
funny you're saying,
and I'd
this,
lend
Chris.
all that money out, man. And I'd make more money than I do dealing with tenants not paying me, tenants complaining that there's cockroaches or whatever else. I mean, we were watching your video. It smells like pee. If it smells like pee or smells like cockroaches, there's money in the walls. We did that right before you came on.
I love that you're saying this, because yesterday, if you guys go to my Instagram story, I talked to a seller yesterday for 7 minutes, and I put it on my Instagram today. And it's a seller. He's 70 years old. He has 232 homes paid off free and clear.
Wow.
Okay. So what does he want to do right now? Do you think he's hurting for money?
No, not at all.
No, but he's 70. So he wants to get out of the game. And so my line to him was this. I said, look, man, all I'm trying to do is upgrade you from a landlord to a lender. And he's like, wow,
sexy.
I've never thought about it that way. And so that's a line I've been using for a couple of years. I'm going to upgrade you from a landlord to a lender. Because if you look at the totem pole, guys, let me be honest with you. The totem pole of life in real estate, who's at the bottom of the totem pole? Wholesalers.
Yeah.
Okay. Wholesalers at the bottom of the totem pole, but that's where you start. That's why it's the foundation. You know, you're looking for distressed properties, right? Who's at the top of the totem pole? Now, property owners, creative finance guys, all that kind of stuff. Like, we're probably as close to the top as you can humanly get. However, who's at the very top? The lender. So what Chris is doing is Chris is saying, look, I just want to be the lender because I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And I get guaranteed returns. And if I don't get those returns, guess what I get? I get the property and I might even make more money. So I want to upgrade my sellers from landlords to lenders. It is one of my go-to lines.
I've got something really funny that I'm going to say because I love that so much. And I'm one of those, like, listen, like, I don't invent things, right? I'm not an inventor. I find something that's really good and I hook onto it and I try to mimic it. And what you just said, that is very powerful. And I think you need to go an extra step with that. So I'm going to give you my idea. If you find more people like that, you almost need to reward them from upgrading. And, you know, like, we always reward people with banking. And we always talk about how banks are the number one purchasers of whole life insurance, and they do it by having VP. So every time when we talk to somebody about being, you know, a banker, BYOB, we give them a little name badge. Like, you know, you ever walk into a bank, how many people do you see that have name badges that say VP? All of them, because the bank needs an executive to have a whole life on them. So we created little name tags that say BYOB, VP of Cashflow, and it can say anything. You need to do something like this for those sellers and like give them a reward, give them a hat or a shirt or like a polo or something that would be appropriate, because most of them are going to be older. So find something that would, I mean, like a trucker hat would be sweet, and just have it say, I've upgraded. And then, oh man,
I love that.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah. So what you're doing is, you know, now they're truly now here's the thing. There's a couple different ways to do that. And I don't want to deviate from this because I know we got a ton of Q&A.
Yes.
But here's the reason why this guy's selling these 232 properties. For me, I look at those and I could donate those properties to my charity. And the cash flow from my charity now is basically tax-free, because I would, you know, a lot of those would be low income housing or affordable housing, and I could qualify as a charity, which would be cool. And I would set my family up for 200 years out. The cash flow on these properties would continue to just compound and compound and compound. But most people don't set up their lives properly, right? Even this guy with 232 properties didn't set up his life properly. So for him, like, he doesn't have whole life. He doesn't have any policies that are allowing him to lend and do certain amazing things. It's just the houses, and he is nothing but a landlord. Okay. So for him, it is a major, major upgrade. For me, I don't plan on selling my properties. I plan on playing out 200 years in the future and having 1,000 homes or 2,000 doors, but me not managing them, having a massive company managing them for me, et cetera. Or with the way Chris is going, simplify it. Simplify it. Make it so simple that all you do is you have so much cash that you just lend, and you're at the top of the totem pole. So there's 1,000 different ways to go about doing it. None of them are incorrect. It just depends on your personality and what you're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish? It's the same reason why when you buy a box of crayons, they don't sell you one color, right? You can use any color you want and still draw a picture, guys. Okay. So Chris might like blue. I might like red. Doesn't mean either one of us are wrong. Okay. We got a whole bunch of Q&A, dude.
I'm going through just kind of reading them. A lot of them are going to be rapid fire because a lot of the same questions are coming through, which is pretty common. But yeah, we'll definitely get to those for sure. We got plenty of time left.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I would look at that, guys, and pay attention to that, because when you understand the end of the rainbow, you understand the pot of gold. And Chris, you just described the pot of gold. You just described, why are we taking this journey? Well, we want to get to the pot of gold. what is the ultimate pot of gold? Well, I want to have enough cash and I want to have my policies. I want to have my things set up properly that I'm just the lender and I get to do whatever the F I want all day long. I can do podcasts. I can go hang out with my kids. I can go travel the country if that's what is cool for me. What's your pot of gold, Chris? Like, what's your end of the line goal?
Now, that's a good question. And I didn't even know what that was until a few years back when my mentor taught me one of the most important things a mentor's ever taught me. He kept asking me, why do I work so hard? Why am I coming in on weekends and all this? And I kept giving him an answer. He said, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. He kept saying no. And I'm like, I'm getting frustrated. And I'm like, dude, what do you want from me? Like, that's why I think I'm doing this. He says, that's not why you're doing this. He said, everybody is working toward the same thing, and that is to live their perfect day. So Pace, what am I working toward? I want to be able to live my perfect day. Now, here's the unique thing about the perfect day. Nobody can work toward their perfect day if you don't know exactly what your perfect day looks like. And your perfect day is from the moment in the morning when you open your eyes and you take your first breath, right to the moment you close your eyes and you fall asleep. What happens in that day if it was your perfect day? Well, it took me weeks to write my perfect day. And it wasn't just a couple pieces of paper. It's like a novel. Every moment of that perfect day is outlined. Now, you can add and subtract parts of that, but there's unique things. Like when I first wake up, my perfect day, I would feel the wind, okay, from the ocean. I would smell the ocean and hear the ocean. Now, right now, I live in Buffalo, New York. If any of you don't know, we don't have an ocean. We have nice Great Lakes, but we don't have an ocean. So what I had to do to trick my mind is I got, one of those Amazon Echoes, and what we play at night is the sound of waves crashing every day. I turn the fan on so I have a breeze going. Even in the winter, I do this because I want to mimic that feeling, because someday I'm going to get there because my mind is already living that perfect day and I just need to fill in the rest. So what is all of your perfect day? Like, what does it look like? What do you work for? You need to know that. And my perfect day involves a lot of surfing, snowboarding with Vivi, and all sorts of things, which involves time. And I don't have time today. Someday I will. And by being my bank, by being the bank, that is time. Because you're like you said, you're at the top of the totem pole. You control it, and you're just collecting the checks because of the fruits of your labor. But the funniest thing about being the bank is a lot of people think, oh, great, Chris, when I have millions of dollars, I'll be the bank. No. Do you think I'm the bank with all my own money? Do banks use their own money to lend to you? No, they use other people's money. See, that's the big thing I didn't know. Back in the day when I was at that 3-day event and I was in that low point, that mentor, that guy, Greg at the front said to me, he says, the ultimate is being the bank. And I said, okay, I just got to flip a couple hundred houses. I'll have a few $1,000,000 and then I can lend money and be the bank. See, I had it all wrong. I thought I had to have all my own money. But then I started saying, wait, Greg, you're not using your own money? He's like, no, do banks use their own money? No, he was showing people the way so they could be the bank. And he found a way to make a living by not only being the bank with his money, but also helping other people be the bank. So that's that.
I'm curious. I love that because it's the same thing. I was talking to Trevor Mock from carrot.com. Do you know Trevor?
I know carrot.com. I don't know Trevor.
Okay. So he's the owner, great guy. You'd love him. He tells that same thing. He must have a similar mentor, or
I bet she does.
Probably. So his thing is like, Pace, here's my perfect day. And he has basically, it's like 20 pages, right? My curiosity with you is you're a high achiever, right? You're somebody who has a vision. You understand what you're going to do. Does your perfect day still involve some semblance of work, some sort of purpose above just spending time with family, friends, et cetera? Tell me a little bit about that. Because I'm building on my perfect day. I'm curious how other red personalities, highly driven people, do you just hang up the towel and go, I'm done working? Or do you find other projects to work on?
There will never be a day where I stop working. The day I stop working is the day I'm dead, because I like working. But see, I don't work in the same capacity as the person that shows up to work to punch a clock, doesn't want to be there. I show up to work because I am helping people. And that's what drives me. And when you give to help other people solve their problems, it's not work at all. You feel like you're building something greater than you. And that's what I do. So work to me, although I do make good money doing it, work to me is solving other people's problems. Every day I come in on our huddles twice a week. The very first thing I ask my entire team, why do we do what we do? And before I even get it out, they're like, to solve other people's problems and help them get control of their money. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that's why we show up every single day. And the second that changes is the second I'm not going to want to work in that field anymore. So will there ever be a day I stop working? Absolutely not. But how I work is maybe very different than the way other people work, because they work because they think they have to. Nobody has to work. People should work because they want to, because they love it, and because they feel like they're doing something bigger than themselves. And if you're not doing that today, figure that out. And if you're like, I can't quit my job, I'm not saying quit your job. Find something in your job that allows you to feel like you're giving something, solving someone's problem. Oh, Chris, I'm a collector. Great. You're helping people get out of a bad situation. Chris, I work at a grocery store. You're feeding young families and you can help people. Someone comes through your line and they can't afford their bill, and you see the little kids and she's like, oh, they're taking groceries out. How nice would that be if you were in a position to reach in your pocket and say, I got this one, and you do that? Or what if you're the second person in the line and you do that? How many of you have actually bought the coffee for the person behind you that you don't know? These are the different training things every one of you need to start doing now to get your mind right. Because until that's right, nothing's ever going to change. It doesn't matter how much you work. If you're working for you and for the me mentality, you will always fail. The system, the universe will make sure you fail until you change that one thing. And just start by doing little things like that. Drive up to
It's
the
interesting
and buy
because
someone something.
From a retirement standpoint, right? So like most people that have, you grow up, you talk about retirement, people are always planning for retirement for the day that they go, I'm never going to work again. Now, my in-laws are like this, right? So he built big custom homes. My father-in-law built big, massive custom homes, 20,000 square foot homes on one of the most prestigious golf courses in Arizona. And he found a lot of passion in it. But when the market tumbled, a lot of people got hurt. He was one of those guys who goes, I'm done. I'm going to retire. I don't want to get back in the game. And oh my gosh, just watching his mind state deteriorate over that time. And I go to him and I'm like, he goes and plays golf in the morning, which is great. And then the rest of the day, he just watches TV. Yeah. And I'm like, amazing. You went your whole life just to do that, right? So for me, retirement, everybody pay attention to this. Retirement is not quitting work. Retirement is hanging up the hat on things that you no longer drive your passions, right? Well, so if that is quitting a job, great. And you can't find passion in your job, then have a side hustle, find passion there, get to a point where there's enough money there that you can retire from a 9 to 5, but you don't need to retire from working. Oh my gosh. Like all I do all day long is find more things I can work on because I'm so passionate. Same thing with you, Chris. Like that's all you're doing is finding new, amazing ways to help people all day long, which is freaking amazing.
My whole life's been like that. Like a lot of people don't know, like Flip Out Academy, which is one of my companies. We used to teach and train people how to flip houses, do burrs. And I don't take new students. We stopped in 18. Why? Because I just didn't get enjoyment out of it anymore. I didn't like it anymore. Something happened. And all of a sudden I just didn't feel like I was fulfilling what I was there to do. So I found something different that really drove me, that really led me to where I'm at today. And you know what? There might come a day someday in the future, 30, 20 years or whatever it is, where my passion changes. I'll tell you one thing that I truly think it's going to be, because I'm already starting down that path. I now have a 9-month-old, right? A little girl like you do. Things are changing up here, man. It's like when I think of snowboarding, I think of, I can't wait to get her on a snowboard. I bought her like a little bar and we pushed her around the house today. Like she's 9 months old. She can't even stand yet, but like, I'm thinking different. And one of the things I think about is what you mentioned earlier. Nobody's teaching what I do at that grade school level. Nobody teaches kids how money works or the things that money can do. They teach kids that money's evil. It's a source of evil. And that's kind of what they are. So I'm doing a whole program. We're writing a children's book right now, but the children's book is going to start with a course that I'm fully producing with a full production crew. It's going to cost me a lot of money, and it's going to be called Money's Cool. And that's going to lead into a series of books. And those books are going to be called Money's Cool. And it's going to be called, like the first one will be called Scouting for Cash. And Scout is my cat. So Scout will be the character in it. I want to teach kids.
Bro, I already freaking love this. This is amazing.
And I'm going to give it all. Here's the funniest thing. Like, and this is what's going to make everybody crazy. That course that I'm creating for the elementary, it's going to be 40 minutes long so that a classroom could play it and teach their kids and they could have fun. That course, I'm going to give it to every school for free. I don't want one penny from it, because if it's charged, I feel like I'm doing it for the wrong reason and I need to make it free. And that's what I'm going to do. And it's funny, we were talking about it yesterday. Shauna made a joke to me. She's like, you can do it for free all you want, but darn well, somehow money's going to flow back to you from this. And I said, that's not why I'm doing it. So if it does, great. I'll find something to put that money in that does a greater good than what I can do. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I won't stop until that's done. And I'm going to start in a middle school, because I feel like that's just the best place for what we're doing. And we're just going to keep going with it.
Bro, I love that. I freaking love that idea. And I love that you're constantly chasing. I wouldn't say you're chasing your next passion. It's just that your passions come to you through helping people, and you constantly run into the same issues that people are challenged with or stuck on. And so you come up with the solution to that issue. That's essentially why you're doing what you're doing right now, 100%. Right? So many people have a challenge with this exact situation that you're passionate about solving that problem until you can at least normalize this conversation around how money actually works. My gosh.
I think a lot of
people in the industry are just trying to sell a product.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I train my staff to not do. Anybody that's ever done a call on all the people on here with me or my team, if they've been sold anything, I will give them $100, because we don't sell. And we intentionally try not to sell. Actually, the people that work with us technically have to ask for us to help them set up their privatized banking. And that's by design. That's not an accident. It's because we shouldn't have to sell a product if we're showing you the path to financial freedom. You should want that. And if you don't want that, then you're not a good fit for us. It's that simple. We don't need everybody. I need the 5%ers. I don't need the 95%, nor do I want them. And I get a lot of them, the engineer types that come to us, and they got all these things, these talking, they're trying to talk themselves out. And I tell my team, I'm like, I can't talk to them. I won't talk to them. I don't think I can help them. They can't help themselves. So sometimes I think in business, it's important that we figure out not who our client is and who it is that we're serving, but we need to figure out who we're not serving, who is not our client. And we need to understand that more than we need to understand who our real client is. Because if you don't understand who your client is not, they will take you down.
Yeah, I the same thing with sellers, right? Motivated sellers. Anybody that's on here that's doing real estate investing, when you're talking to a motivated seller, and you run down that path. But I see a lot of new aspiring real estate investors spend way too much time on people that are just wasting their time, kicking tires, et cetera. So this is another line I tell sellers. I tell sellers, hey, I'm okay with a yes. I'm ecstatic when I hear a no, but nothing frustrates me like a maybe.
I love that.
I either want a yes or I want a no. I'm not going to call and follow up. In fact, people go, I'll ask and I'll say, hey, when can I follow up? And I'll follow up one time. But usually I do an upfront contract verbally with the seller. And I go, look, I'm a sales guy, so I'm going to follow up with you, right? Sometimes that's what happens. But what I would appreciate is if you don't want to talk to me, just tell me no. Don't ghost me. Don't do anything. So I get a lot of people like, oh, the seller's ghosting me. I'm like, it's because you didn't set the ground rules for the conversation. You need to tell them that you're okay with a no and you hate a maybe. So just tell me no and I'll move on. But I see these investors that are just aspiring to get their first deal, and they find this one seller that was just nice to them on the phone, and they spend 3 months chasing this one seller, and they get this condition called one-itis. They have one lead and they're addicted to this one lead. And I'm like, bro, if it's a maybe, put it in a 6-month follow-up. Focus on the yeses and the nos. In fact, go and find more nos, because you're bound to find the yes, right? I like that about what you're talking about with engineers, because I run into engineers all the time, and they're the ones with all the greatest questions, but they're the ones that are making the least amount of money.
And they're the ones that talk themselves out of just about everything.
100%.
Listen, I've spent 20 years in the financial industry, and I've come across many, many engineers, and sometimes college professors have that same thing. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just what they've been trained is that everything has to fit in the square hole perfectly. And in life, that's just not quite how it works. And in money, that definitely isn't how it works. So typically, they're better off just doing things themselves. And you know what that normally leads them to do? Pile all their money in the stock market, because that's what everybody else is doing. And it's the only thing they can rationalize. And then in a couple of years from today, 2022, 2023, they lose it all and wonder what happened and blame everything else, because it can't be something that I did. I fit the square peg in the square hole. I did it right. That's
Yeah,
not the way life works.
I get engineers, that call me, or they're on wholesale hotline, or they're on one of our shows. And the question is always, well, what if this happens? Well, what if that happens? Well, what if this? And I go, what if you just took action? What if you purposely went out to make mistakes and you just learned through your mistakes and you took action? What if, right? It's always what if.
Look at Sam. Like, Sam, thank you so much for posting that. Honestly, that says a lot about just who you are. Aerospace engineer here. I'm a rocket scientist, and I've talked myself out of everything in real estate thus far. Now, that isn't like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand, like, what we're saying here. It's not a problem so much. It's just how they're trained. And thank God, because if he's a rocket scientist and he's planning, helping design that rocket that's going to go to Mars, man, I hope every little square peg fits in a square, hole. Like, I hope that he does that right. But you got to remember, it's just different than the way real estate works. It's different than the way money works. There is no round peg and square hole. If there was, like, how would sub-twos have ever come to be? That is literally a round hole, a round peg going into a square hole, but it works, and it will.
Yeah, it works. And that's the crazy thing about this, is that you talk to real estate agents, brokers, et cetera, and you go, oh yeah, well, what if your client just sold to me on seller finance? They're like, what's seller finance? I'm like, wait, you've been in the industry 20 years and you don't know, sub two and seller finance has been done for, sub two's probably been done for 150 years. Seller finance has been done for millennia. Like, it's been done for a long, long time, right? I mean, hell, it's being done right now with cars. Like, you go to leasetrader.com. If you guys go to leasetrader.com, you can take over somebody's lease without actually having to apply for the lease. You can take stuff over all the time. We do it frequently, right? Take over payments, do this, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't fit in this little hole of people. So I get agents that call me and go, man, I'm struggling as a real estate agent. I'm like, well, have you thought about adding sub two, seller finance, and other things? I've got an agent. This is interesting. I challenge you guys, anybody that's a real estate agent that doesn't understand how common seller finance subject to is, go to your state's MLS. If you go to your state's MLS and you do a search and you type in a keyword search for seller finance or seller will carry or subject to, hundreds of properties are on the MLS right now being sold on seller finance. Hundreds. It's just that it's not in everybody's wheelhouse. And so it seems foreign to people. For me, it's become commonplace, right? I was forced in a position two plus years ago that I was like, I have to build an entire portfolio with very little cash. And I had to use creative finance, Ooh, Eve Page, such a great question. So Eve Page says, couldn't the subject to trigger a due on sale clause? Yes. Subject to, this is one of my favorite topics of all time. Subject to absolutely does trigger the due on sale clause. I have had the due on sale clause triggered on me multiple times. Have I ever lost a home? No, I haven't, because there's 5 ways to overcome that. Okay. So when does the due on sale clause get triggered? It gets triggered when there's a transfer of ownership on record, right? So if we go back to the exit strategies, let's talk about this for a second. If you're really worried about the due on sale clause, then I suggest you don't buy a property on subject to. I buy most of my properties on subject to and seller finance because I'm not worried about it. And I'll tell you why in a second. But one, if I am really worried about it, I can purchase a property on a lease option. I can also purchase a property on agreement for sale. Now, what does that mean? That means I'm taking over their mortgage, but I don't have the deed transferred into my name. The only thing that triggers the due on sale clause is when the deed transfers from the person who has the mortgage in their name to the new buyer. And the bank goes, oh my gosh, there's a new buyer on the property, but our debt did not get paid off. I'm going to trigger the due on sale clause, right? I've probably had the due on sale clause called 5 times, and one of my students has had it done once. It does happen. And you do need to know what to do in that situation. So let's say that I buy a property subject to, and why, by the way, while I'm answering this, why wouldn't I buy all of my properties on lease options? Well, because I'm not the owner. I want to be the owner. I want the depreciation. I want all the appreciation. I want all the benefits of being the owner of the property. So for me, I don't get excited about buying properties on lease options. It's one of my last ways I will ever buy a property. With a lease option in 3 years or 5 years, guess what I have to go do? I have to go and get a bank loan to wipe out the person who sold it to me on a lease option. I am not interested in ever getting another bank loan in my life. This is my house right here. It's probably a $600,000 house, nothing absolutely crazy. But I bought this property a year and a half ago, $0 out of pocket, paid closing costs, took over somebody's subject to loan. Not many people live in a $600,000 loan or a house, let alone a house they never had to even get a loan or financing for, right? So for me, lease options are not exciting, but yes, you can do them. Agreement for sale is I actually am the owner, but I don't hold the deed until the house is paid off. It's like buying a car, right? I am the car owner. However, until I pay the debt off, I don't hold the deed. So if you really want to go that route, you never have to worry about ever having a due on sale clause ever triggered if you purchase on an agreement for sale. Now, why don't I buy on an agreement for sale? Because if I buy on an agreement for sale, that means, again, I don't have the deed. Therefore, if I don't have the deed, I can't go to the IRS and get depreciation. Okay. So due on sale clause, very simple. I've had it called on us, I think 4 times, maybe 5 times. And every single time we've done one of 2 things. Either A, we call the bank and say, hey, you know what? This person was in foreclosure. We're now making the payment. And they're like, oh, got it. Just want to make sure that that's what's going on. No problem. Thank you so much for calling. The other time that it's happened where the bank says, no, we don't care. You're making the payments. We want the house back. We ended up asking the bank, how else would you structure this? And we went back and we switched the paperwork up to be an agreement for sale instead of a subject to. So subject to is the tip of the iceberg, right? There's multiple ways to purchase the property, but if due on sale clause is something you're worried about, which we are not, you can always buy in a lease option or agreement for sale. Or if it's a seller finance situation, there is no due on sale clause because the seller is financing you themselves. They are acting as the bank.
So that was a perfect way to answer that. So Eve, I hope that helped you. Let's do this. Let's go to the top of the Q&As. Let's get some of these out of the way because there are some good questions and a lot of them are the repeats. It says, if you're living in an apartment and wanted to find a sub-2 seller finance to live in, how would you approach that from scratch?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways to do this. You would either A, go to my community. So I have a great community, Creative Finance with Pace Morby. It's a Facebook group. And I would post in there and say, hey guys, I'm looking for a sub-2 or seller finance opportunity. Please, I want something in these areas. And I would let the 20,000 people in my Facebook group help you find that opportunity because Sam, if you're an aerospace engineer, I would imagine that you don't have a full-time job hunting down and looking for opportunities with distressed property owners, right? So go to other people who have those opportunities and pay them an assignment fee, $5,000, $7,000, whatever. Okay. That's from scratch. If that's what you want a house for yourself, easy. I own a property in Atlanta right now, came from a wholesaler. I paid a $10,000 assignment fee in Atlanta for a $1.5 million home. Gorgeous. It's in Ansley Park. Anybody that doesn't know Ansley Park, look it up. It's where the mayor lives. It's where Outkast lives. It's where like everybody that's cool in Atlanta lives in Ansley Park. I get this property from a wholesaler because he's like, I don't know what to do with it. I know you buy creative deals. This lady wants too much money for the house. So I bought it from the wholesaler and paid him a $10,000 fee. It's now an Airbnb that brings in $20,000 a month. So I would go to people who are already spending marketing dollars to find distressed property owners and say, I'm a buyer of sub-2 or seller finance. Unfortunately, not all wholesalers know how to do this. So what you want to do is go to a community of people that do know how to do this. And my free creative finance Facebook group would be a great way to start. Hey guys, my name's Sam. I'm looking for an opportunity. I'm in an apartment right now. I want to buy my first house. I don't want to have to go get a loan. Who can put me in the right direction for a sub-2 or seller finance opportunity?
Awesome. All right. Claire was just saying earlier, remember when you were saying the point is always go see the house. Is that a good point?
Dude, yeah. On a wholesale deal, no. On wholesale, I could virtually wholesale all day long and not even worry about looking at the house because I'm assigning it, right? I let the buyer go see the house or whatever, right? But if it's a property that I'm going to go and fix and flip and the photos it's like the house is trashed, then yes, the answer is drive by the property or pay somebody from taskrabbit.com to drive by the property and like inspect it, whatever. Especially if it's a long-term buy and hold. If you're going to buy and hold and put it in your portfolio, go see the property. right? Go see the property.
Absolutely. And then Candace was saying, since there's so many options, what would you tell somebody starting out in real estate to get started with? That's the $1 million question. A lot of people
I know
ask.
the answer every time. The answer is the same exact answer. Okay. Answer number one. Actually, I'll give you the 3 steps. Okay. You want to know the 3 steps of getting started in real estate? I answer this question so frequently. I'll pull it up on my screen. It is so frequent that I was like, it's literally the number one question I get in my DMs is like, how do I start in real estate? Now, I always want to start in real estate with people that don't have a budget, assuming they don't have a budget. Okay. This is how you get started in real estate. Okay. I have no budget. Even people with money, I tell them start with no budget. Here's what you do. Join a community. Okay. What would be a community? That would be Chris Naugle's community. That would be a creative finance Facebook group. That would be a Facebook group of other like-minded people. Join it, right? There's free ones everywhere. Go join one. Don't go join 15. Go join 1 or 2. Okay. The second thing is squad up and bring value. Okay. And I'm going to give you some I'm not a believer in ambiguous catchphrases. Okay. I'm going to give you very specific advice on this. Squad up and bring value. So what could I do? I look at people all the time, right? Chris does video content. I do video content. I have houses that I'm fixing and flipping. Chris has stuff he's doing all the time. Reach out to other investors like us that have, Instagrams or Facebook and go, hey, can I go out into the field with you and hold your camera while you're doing a YouTube video, right? Become friends with people and bring value. That's just one of 100 ideas that you could do with people. Okay. The next thing is, how do I actually start getting deals? I would drive for dollars because it costs no money. And why would I drive for dollars? Number one, it's proven that like 70% of people that got their first real estate deal did it by driving for dollars. Okay. It's not just about getting the deal. It's also understanding your entire area and knowing what's happening in these areas, what pockets, what's this, and you become a master of your community. These are the first steps of getting started in real estate. If you have not joined a community and you have not brought value to people in that community and you have not started driving for dollars, then I don't suggest you do anything else. So many people go on YouTube, they do all these other things. Great, do those things, but are you out driving for dollars while you're listening to a podcast? Are you out, building a local group or squad of people that you guys are exchanging value? I'm not saying exchanging deals. I'm saying exchanging value. Now, if I was brand new and if I was in Buffalo, New York, I would reach out to Chris and I'd be like, yo, bro, I know you have a camera guy. I know when you're doing these commercials, you're doing this stuff, but can I just be a guy that moves the lights around, packs the equipment? Can I just be around you guys and vibe with you and just get a feel for what you guys are doing? The answer is going to be, yeah, reach out to my camera guy. If, next time we're doing a video shoot, oh my gosh, like people just don't know how simple the value that I would look at that and be like, yeah, my camera guy is always lugging stuff up, setting up lights, doing this, doing that. Or I'm going to houses that I'm fixing and flipping and I'm holding my own camera like this. Hey guys, I'm at this property, 123 Main Street, blah, 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 blah. It would be way better if somebody in my local community was like, hey, can I just meet you at one of your next fix and flips and you tell me what you did here, how you found the deal? I'll hold the camera while you do your YouTube video. Basic value.
That's an important thing. Dimitri, who's started as one of our interns, came to our RIA, sat at the front of the thing, and then came up and said, are you hiring? And I said, I'm always hiring, but I don't pay. And I figured that would just get rid of him. And no, he stayed. He says, okay, so what do you need help with? I said, everything, filing, organizing, spreadsheets. And he says, when do you want me to start? So we gave him a day. That was well over a year ago. He hasn't left, but do you want to know what's happened now? Dimitri and me have done joint wholesale deals where he's made thousands of dollars. And now Dimitri is running the entire land flipping division of our real estate operation.
Wow.
Solely. I fund all the marketing and he does all the work, takes the calls, does it. I mean, all he did is showed up and didn't ask for something. He said, what can I do to be part of this?
Right.
There you go.
And you don't have to know anything. That's the other thing. People just overthink it, right? They got that engineer mindset of like, well, what will people think about me? Here's what we'll think about you. Holy moly, why couldn't they make more of you? That's what we'll
think. Exactly. 100%. Absolutely. Unanimous said, I like this question. I am relocating to Oklahoma or from Oklahoma to Denver, and I'm considering renting versus buying. Problems with buying is I'm still in debt and have a home to run in Oklahoma and a spouse. I'm divorcing. Okay. Almost left that part out. I could buy with a VA loan, which we know could be zero money out of pocket. Would it be better to rent until the divorce is complete?
I would say yes.
I would second that. Yes.
I would say get the divorce complete. Also, Denver is an amazing town. I would go rent in Denver for like a 6-month time frame if you can get a 6-month lease. And what I would do is I would spend my Saturdays and Sundays driving around Denver, getting to know the neighborhoods that I like, and then say, now when I'm ready to buy, I want to live in these parts, right? Like Denver is so cool. You've got Parker, Colorado, which is South Denver. That is like an area that nobody even knows about. Well, a lot of people do now. Or you've got Northern Denver, and it's completely polar opposite of each other. You can't just say, oh, I'm living in Denver. So if you're moving to a new place, even if you weren't getting a divorce, it's probably a good idea just to rent for a short term, get to know the city, and then get a spot to live in.
Absolutely. This one says, I have a seller who has a Section 8 tenant, gets $2,000, house in California worth $650,000, and the seller is asking for that same amount. So it's worth $650,000, they're asking $650,000. Seller has $530,000 loan on the property and is willing to do $100,000 owner finance. Any bright ideas for creative financing, like evict a tenant and make it an Airbnb? Good luck evicting the tenant right now in California.
Yeah, I was just going to say California is an impossible situation for a lot of people right now. So here's my advice for anybody wanting to hold properties. Don't hold properties in California unless it's an
or
Airbnb.
Or New York.
Just don't. Guys, we have amazing states. You can do this stuff virtually. Stop trying to buy stuff in California. And I get people that are very defensive about it. They feel like they, I have pride in California. Okay, great. Then get into politics and change the situation in California. It's a mess. You won't be able to evict them. And by the way, the price point you just talked about, $530,000 existing loan, that lady more than likely is losing money on that $2,000 Section 8 rental.
She absolutely is.
There's no way.
No way.
So how would it be a good deal for you to take that over? Here's the first rule of creative finance. Cash flow, everything. You don't buy properties with negative cash flow just so you can have future appreciation. You always have to have cash flow to back up on. And so if you're going to buy that deal, okay, it's California, maybe I can do it Airbnb. What if you can't? What if you can't get that tenant out for a year and now you're hemorrhaging money for a year? That little amount of money you lose over the course of a year could amplify into hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost opportunity that you could have spent your time somewhere else.
And God forbid the market changes. I mean, California is just in a wee little bit of a bubble, and then all of a sudden that $650,000 house is now worth $500,000. Now what are you going to do?
Here's the way I look at this. This is an analogy I use. Let's say Chris and I go out to go fishing, and we're brothers, and our mom says, okay, well, we only have this much bait. So I'm going to split this bait in half. It's going to be equal amount of bait. And let's say it's power bait, power bait, the malleable stuff you put on the hook. It's colorful. It smells like whatever. So we go out and we're fishing in the same river. I'm going to be very aware of how much bait I have. And I'm going to try and utilize that bait to catch as many fish as I possibly can to bring home. And I'm kind of competing against my brother, Chris. It would be really stupid of me to take a big chunk of my bait and go catch one little stupid dinky fish with that big piece of bait. So what I'm looking at is that $100,000 down that the seller wants to bring a very teeny little fish or a problematic diseased fish to bring back home. That's a poor use of my bait. So for me, I look at deals and I go, how can I buy this deal with zero down? Or how do I buy something where the fish, even if I have to put a lot of money down, like that deal in Atlanta I put $100,000 down on that house, but that property brings in $20,000 a month. So I appropriately used my bait on a deal that will bring me massive fish for a long period of time. So use your bait as sparingly as possible to catch the largest fish as you possibly can. That is not a good use of your bait.
Well said. And then Cynthia was asking, would a house next to a nursing home be a good candidate for an Airbnb? I guess that's kind of a loaded question, Cynthia. There's a lot of other things we'd need to know, but what would you say for a simple answer?
I would say no, that's not a standard candidate for, because here's the reality. Nobody knows. I used to be in behavioral health and assisted living. I owned 4 behavioral health and assisted living facilities. I could stand at any one of those properties and throw a rock in any direction. And I'm not exaggerating. On a really good day, if my arm was feeling good, I could throw a rock hard enough that I could hit another assisted living, retirement community, behavioral health community. They are everywhere. You just don't know. Okay. Let me give you an example of how I know this. When you go buy a new property in Phoenix, Arizona, and you go, I'm going to turn this into a group home. You can't just turn any old home into a group home. You have to go to zoning and say, hey, zoning, I'm going to turn this into a group home. Now, they're not going to change the zoning for the property. What they're going to do is make sure that you are geographically spaced out from other group homes, assisted living, retirement communities, because they don't want to overwhelm one pocket of the community with too many retirement homes. There are full-on cities in the Phoenix geographical area or the metro, like Mesa with 600,000 people, that if you tried to get into the assisted living game, the only way that you are going to get into that game is to buy somebody else's existing assisted living, because it is completely blacked out. You cannot put another property in that whole entire 600,000 person population. It's oversaturated. Why do I say this? I say this because you know that there's one retirement community right there because there's a sign in front of it. But the reality is there's a retirement community every 1,000 yards in the entire country. I promise you, you just don't know it. Okay. So I never look at retirement communities as a great way to bring in Airbnb. For me, most important thing, 3-bed, 2-bath, near a freeway. And because most of the time when people go to an Airbnb, like they're coming into town, they're not staying at the Airbnb except for at nighttime. They're traveling around. They're going to the mountains. They're going hiking. So recreational activities are way more important than visiting Grandma Smith and Grandpa, Tom.
Yeah, that's a good one. Todd was saying, I started off with rentals. I'm in the process of selling my last rental. Should I concentrate on wholesaling for now before buying another rental?
That's a personal decision because I don't know your financial world, but here's my feeling on rentals. Rentals are work. It's not really passive income unless you can hire somebody to manage it for you. So if you're at like 10 rentals or less, usually most people self-manage, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of headaches and stupid phone calls and all sorts of stuff. So for me, and the cash flow really on 10 properties is not so dramatic that it's like, this is a life-changing amount of money. Yeah, actually, I shouldn't say that. It is a life-changing amount of money for like 99% of people. What I'm saying is you don't want, with 10 houses cash flowing, you could definitely quit your job. Okay. You can definitely quit your job. However, now you have a new job managing rentals. So for me, wholesale is a great way to start. It's headache-free. You can enjoy your weekends. So yes, wholesale is the way to go for probably 99% of people to get into the game.
Awesome. If I buy sub 2 and sell to new buyer with seller financing, how does it work out when the buyer wants to sell later?
Okay, so that's very simple. So what happens is this: the new buyer or the buyer, right? Now the owner, because you sold it on seller financing. Guess what you just did? You turned yourself into the lender, right? You created a position for yourself where there's a subject to loan for, let's say, $100,000. Here, I'll pull it up on the screen so we can visualize this real quick, because this is a great question. So let's say that I buy a house and it's a sub 2 house, and I take over an existing loan of $100,000. I turn around and I add $50,000 to that, and I sell it to somebody else for $150,000 with $10,000 down. Great. I get $10,000 in my pocket. This person, guess how much they owe me? They owe me personally $40,000, right? Because their 10 grand goes against that 50 that I created for myself, right? We following everybody? So that 40 grand plus the original 100 is what they currently owe, right? And they're going to make payments, and you'll make some cash flow on this, which is great as they pay this $40,000 down. Great. But let's say this buyer, name is Tim, decides, hey, I'm getting married. I've got this girl named Susan. I'm going to move in with Susan, and I no longer need this house that I bought from Pace. So Tim goes and he puts it on the market. He says, this is for sale. And he sells it for $199 2-3 years later. Well, what happens is the new buyer, Peter, submits an offer for $199. And guess what they do? They go open up escrow at a title company. That title company then does this magical thing called a lender payoff request. Now you're going to remember that this guy owed me at one point 140 grand, but now he probably owes about 137 because he's paid down some principal along the way. And I send a lender payoff request and it says $99,000 goes to the original sub 2 and $38,000 goes to Pace's note that I created. And this guy, Peter, he goes out, gets a loan for the $199, and that $199 goes to the title company and pays off these two notes before the new buyer closes escrow.
Well said, man. And a fellow artist. Love it. All right. Are you, let's see this one. Are you given first right of refusal? I'm not really
sure. So I love that. So I know exactly what he's talking about, which is a perfect segue into this situation. So you see Tim here. Tim then sells the property for $199 to Peter. I can put in my agreement, right? When I sell this property to Tim, I can have an agreement that states, hey, I'm selling this to you on seller finance, but I want first right of refusal to buy the property back from you when you decide to sell it. Instead of you selling it to Peter, I want you to sell it to me. Why would I do that? Well, remember, there's a sub 2 loan here that might be like 3.25% interest. Don't you think I want to keep that loan in my name? So yes, you can go back to Tim and you can say, hey, let me buy the property from you and you have first right of refusal. Yes, that is in my agreements with my wrap buyers.
Awesome. And then Lynette had a question. She was just saying she got a call out of the blue or a text out of the blue about selling her house. She was wondering if that's a wholesaler. More than likely, I would say yes.
1,000%.
There you go. So 1,000%. All the neighbors here are getting solicited to buy their house. Well, they must live in a good area. There is not enough inventory on the market for all buyers right now. Okay, that's just a statement. What is the seller? Oh, what is the seller financing link, please? Is there somewhere they can go for that?
They can go to my website, sub2.com.
There we go. Give that to you. And then Maria
said,
said,
this is so funny that she asked for this. Check this out.
The script?
Yeah, because I just built this.
Oh, look at this.
I literally built it this morning. Check this out. I'll show it to you. It's pretty cool. And I'll give this to you guys. Happily give this to you. So I call it the one doorway challenge, and it has exactly what Driving for Dollars is about. It has a 30-day calendar of exactly what to go do. Because this is such a common question for me that I decided to have my graphic designer build this out. And then it says, here's your 9 steps for a strategy. And check it out. Driving for Dollars frequently asked questions. And then bada bing, bada boom, cold calling script, 2 pages of cold calling script and a foreclosure script. We just built this whole thing out.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so I'll email it to Chris, and Chris can give it to his audience.
You know what we'll do? We'll just send it to everybody in the recording of this. We'll include that link or that whole thing you did, and we'll send it out. You know what else I'm going to do? Since he's giving some stuff away, I'm going to give you guys all the book. So we'll give you the ebook, and I'll also give you a link where you can get the hardcover copy for free. You just got to pay the shipping to your door. And so what the heck? Why not? And what the hell? Let me throw this book in too. If you guys want Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, we'll give you that one. God, what else can we give away for free?
I love that.
I love giving, man. Love it, love it, love it. So with this email that we get that Shauna sends out to all of you, we'll have, that stuff from Pace. We'll have the book, The Private Money Guide, so you guys can learn how to raise money. Because believe me, right now, there's so much money out there, and it's very easy to raise money. And all you need to do is what we've been talking about a lot: solve somebody's problem. Pay for your neighbor's car with the equity from his house. Just think along those lines. They've got equity in their house. Tell them how the equity in their house can pay their car payment. But don't tell them that. Tell them how you'll do it for them. Your property which needs the money, which is the equity in their house, then can be used, and you will make monthly payments that pay both of your neighbor's car payments. Not a bad deal. If you solve people's problems, it's amazing what you can do. Absolutely amazing. So let's see. I think we've got through all the questions. How good are I don't know. Perpetuity.
I've got another Zoom in 2 minutes.
Yes, so we got to run. All right, folks, you guys heard it there, sub2.com, and we'll put that in the link. So guys, we got to run. Pace, it was awesome, man. We went way over, but it was good stuff. Thank you.
Bro, you're the man. Everybody, I really, really appreciate you guys paying attention to us. Thank you. And we'll get you guys out that driving for dollar script to help out anybody that's brand new.
Fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you. And folks, we're going to end real quick with a video as we always do. And this is just to make you guys laugh. So here we go.
About time that I walk away. So I turn around to walk away, but then I look back. Sadly, it make me turn and walk away again.
Even though it looks like it's the future, it's really a long, long time ago when there were nights and they got into fights using sabers of light. Even though some things look so familiar, they're not really on that yet. It's a galaxy far, far away. Alien DNA walking around every day. No one notices. Well, I messed up. Yeah, I made a mistake. I can't sleep. Have to find your place soon. My tailor's awesome. All the people looking. Rolling like I'm platinum. You know I've gone a long way to change my mind about it since I seen you. But I'm talking at my robot as you mill about the city, and I'm on my way. Girl, there's something that you need to know. Even though it looks like it's the future, it's really a long, long time ago when there were nights and they got into fights using sabers of light. Even though some things look so familiar, they're not really on that yet. It's a galaxy far, far away. Alien DNA walking around every day. No one notices. Space station blown away. It's not the future. Floating in the diaper tank. It's not the future. Space leprechaun fade away. It's not the future. Cyborg with no big boy words to say. It's not the future.
Get turned, get real turned. Get turned, get real turned.
Well, I'm a jaywalker, got a lot of fresh damage, oh no. I can't always be around to explore foreign love, overflowing for your love. And not I'm sure that when we argue makes me dream about those demon fishes. It's not the way that it's meant to be, and I bless your outfit, that's a good choice.
What is he saying? I don't understand.
Listen, girl, I hope the heartbreak leaves me on the weekend. Even though it looks like it's the future, it's really a long, long time ago when there were nights and they got into fights using sabers of light. Even though some things look so familiar, they're not really on that yet. It's a galaxy far, far away. Alien DNA walking around every day. Furry creatures dance, but they're not teddy bears. They're an alien equivalent, and they may rage in familiar trees, but it's not the redwood you see. It's something else in the air.
Time to break it down, down, down.
Yeah, I was big in Japan. I was king of ping pong. Yeah, I was bad at tuba, and I'm sure you like me to bounce.
Master, I need one of these. Do they come in threes? Cause I need to squeeze them.
Yeah, I was big in Japan. I was king of ping pong. Yeah, I was bad at tuba, and I'm sure you like me to bounce. Sometimes a moment when you wish you could run and hide is when you find you need a new hyperdrive.